Thanks, John, and it's really great to be here today, and SB Energy Networks proudly sponsoring today's event, and we're delighted to do so. Sometimes as an energy network, we're sometimes the forgotten link in the chain when it comes to EV, but we are going to perform an absolutely vital role over the coming years to make sure that this EV revolution actually happens, and beyond that, the decarbonisation of heat. So we've got a lot of work to do in our organisation to make it happen. So my name's Guy Jefferson. I'm the Customer Services Director for SP Energy Networks. We are part of the Scottish Power Group, and Scottish Power are part of the Iberdrola Group worldwide. Iberdrola are the third biggest utility in the world, so we have a great opportunity with that organisation to make sure that we make what needs to happen in our territories, both in Scotland and here in the northwest of England and Wales, make it happen. And we have great opportunity in terms of leveraging off that worldwide technology base to ensure that we provide the best possible service, particularly here in the northwest. Just a little bit of background in terms of who we actually are. We operate here under a name that many will be familiar with in terms of ManWeb. We are the infrastructure company, nothing to do with retail. So if you have a problem with your electricity bill, that isn't my department. Please don't ask me any questions on that one. But this is a traditional, where we fit in terms of the network infrastructure on this slide. Traditionally, power moved from the left of that slide to the right-hand side. It started with the big power stations who generated the electricity. It was transmitted by our colleagues in National Grid, who brought it to us at 132,000 volts. We took it over there and we distributed that electricity to every customer in this area, for example, across the ManWeb patch. We distribute third-party retailers' energy to customers, but we are obviously an important link in the chain in terms of making sure that the energy gets where it needs to be and it gets there in a secure and resilient fashion. We have 700,000 customers in the Liverpool City region area. We facilitate the work that we need to do on our asset base in terms of maintenance, operation, fixing faults, replacing assets with 1,000 employees, 600 of whom are directly employed by us. And we have a lot of assets in the ground in terms of substations and cable, 15,000 kilometres of cable alone in this area. So that's who we are. In terms of what I wanted to talk about today, we have a global challenge ahead of us, as you'll be well aware. Decarbonisation of transport and heat is a massive challenge for the UK, but it's a massive challenge for our organisation. We have good experience with our worldwide network, and I've thrown up a few statistics there with regard to the global challenge that we've got in terms of delivering against the promise that's been made by many countries in terms of decarbonisation. And the targets that we have here in the UK, which are in the centre of that slide, are pretty leading edge, I think, across the globe. Our Scandinavian counterparts are ahead of us and we can learn a lot from them. But here in the UK, we have some ambitious targets, no more than the one we have here in Liverpool City region of 2040. One of the issues that we need to try and manage as a business is we have 2040 here, but we have 2050 wider in the UK. We also have 2045 in Scotland, and we have a number of cities who are also looking to push that challenge to 2040. It's only going one way as far as I can see, and that's that we're having a bit of a game here of, I don't know if you remember Name That Tune, it was always I can do this in a shorter number than anyone else. It's getting a bit like that with the climate change and the zero carbon targets. So this is going to hit us, it's just a matter of when, and we need to be ready to meet that challenge square on. And we always come first in the chain, so we need to be well ahead of when this EV revolution actually hits. So I talked about our network right back at that second slide and the traditional movement of power to left to right. That's no longer the case. We operate what we call now a flexible network. Power still travels from left to right, but it also travels from right to left. It travels up, it travels down. We need to have a flexible network. One of the issues that we have is our network was started to be built and was designed many decades ago. And people at that time did not foresee what the network would be required to do to deliver what we wanted to in that year 2040. So we have a flexible network. We've got to decarbonise heat and transport. That's the first challenge ahead of us. That's a huge one alone. So we're not talking about decarbonisation of heat today in reality, but one of the statistics that I can conjure up is that if we just transfer 15% of the energy that's currently delivered by heat networks onto the electricity network through heat pumps, etc., then that would necessitate the doubling of the network that we currently have in the ground. That's the kind of challenge that we're talking about in terms of heat. We also have to deal with changing customer behaviour. Our customers are very important to us. We want to make sure that we deliver against their expectations, but customers are now becoming completely different from what they've been in the past. They're now becoming prosumers. So they still require electricity to go about their daily business, but now they are generating their own electricity. They have more demands, like EV chargers, like heat pumps. They can sell back to us as well as take energy from the network. And we need to make sure that we're ready to accept that challenge. Also, as a regulated networks business, we need to make sure there's a fair transition into this new world. So we need to make sure that while some customers who are lucky enough to be able to afford EVs and heat pumps, and we need to facilitate their needs, we need to make sure that the wider community has the opportunity to benefit from this transition. So community energy is another very important part of the challenge that we need to deliver against as a network provider. So with all of that going on, we still need to make sure, probably the most important thing is that our network is still resilient and secure. You can imagine that people just used to, they used to run pretty large part of their daily life using electricity. That's going to become more predominant. They're going to have their transport needs now from electricity, potentially their heat needs from electricity. They are going to be absolutely reliant on our network more than they ever have been before. So we need to make sure that we deliver against the resilience and security standards that we have today and even improve that. And with all of those other challenges going on, that's going to be a huge challenge for us, but we can certainly deliver against that. In terms of trying to scale this in some way and compare it to something that happened quite recently, that slide shows the bottom two lines of that graph were the predictions that the government had back in 2011 for the uptake of PV, solar panels. They thought it would take about 20 years for us to get to 7 gigawatts of connected PV in the UK. In reality, because solar panels dropped in price very quickly and policy came in from government that allowed grants, etc., and tariff support for PV installation, those forecasts were somewhat off. So what actually happened in 4 years was what they expected to happen in 21. So that's a huge variation to the forecast, and that's what worries me, that's what keeps me awake at night, that the same thing is going to happen with electric vehicles. I used to stand up here and pontificate, and I've done that for the last 18 months about it's very important to move on to electric vehicles and have that as your primary vehicle, and I didn't have one myself. I'm glad to say I've put a deposit down a few weeks ago and I'm getting an electric vehicle, and what I was really surprised at is how affordable it is already. It's a new Tesla 3, it's from a capital point of view, it costs no more than a BMW 3 Series, and with the grants and the efficient loans that are available for buying electric vehicles, I was absolutely delighted as a customer that I was getting a great deal, but I was absolutely terrified as a network provider that we really need to get ahead of the curve here and get the charging infrastructure in place, or we are going to be causing a bottleneck and the customers are not going to get what they need. So in Liverpool City region, our focus is to make sure we deliver the rollout of electric vehicles. We're working very closely with the local council and obviously the city region to make that happen. We're passionate about decarbonising heat and cleaning the air. A few years ago and even now, people are actually dying from air pollution in our big cities, and that is a wake-up call for us all, and it's absolutely critical that we deal with that, and we need to play our part. It's also important for us to be fair and make sure we deliver that access to everyone in our communities, not just those who can afford this expensive capital kit. And that's another great passion that we have to make that happen. We want to allow households to take control of their energy usage and transmit onto our grid as well as accept electricity from our network. And we need to maintain, we've been really successful at connecting renewables, We've done a great job on that so far, but that's not over yet either. There's huge amounts still to be done there and in this area to make sure we get more renewable energy onto the grid. Just scaling it in terms of investment, we've spent about £20 million in the local area looking at trying to decarbonise over the last few years, since 2015. We've got £25 million firm in our plan to 2023, from 2020 to 2023. However, we do expect 450,000 EVs in the Liverpool city region to be on the roads by 2040, which is a huge amount of vehicles. And that means we've approximated about 15% of our network will need to be renewed, replaced or extended, and that could cost about 375 million. So we need to step up our annual investment by about 300 to 350% in order to meet that challenge that's going to be presented. We've started with great support locally. We're working in partnership with those who you would expect. Rapid charging infrastructure is already in place for public transport. We need more. We're starting to develop our public EV charging and starting to install those around the city and in the city region. And we are supporting the sustainable redevelopment here in the Liverpool City region area. We have some staff embedded in the Liverpool City region and City Council to try and make sure that we are being as efficient, as effective as we possibly can be in delivering the proposals that will make this happen. One of the ones I just want to touch on is in the Baltic Triangle. It's an area that we've highlighted to put a focus on to give us almost a pilot area. We're facilitating on-street charging, hopefully obviously to attract clean vehicles. But what we're doing here, and that's different types of charging, because again it's very difficult to predict and forecast how people will charge their vehicles. Some will charge them at home if they've got space to park their car, some will rely on street charging, some will rely on charging in their workplace, and there may be other ways of charging that we haven't even thought of yet. So what we're trying to do is get all these types of charging in one area in Liverpool, put some monitoring around our network to understand how that's being utilised, and then that will allow us to educate ourselves and hopefully put plans in place to deliver against what the public and the customers want in terms of their charging facilities over the coming years. So that's our Baltic Triangle area where we're starting to actually do that now and install different types of EV charging. The last line on that is very important. Undoubtedly, because of the amount of infrastructure that we're going to have to put in over the next 20 or 30 years, there will be some disruption. But what's important to do is utilise and be effective with the network we have already. There is capacity available now. If we are clever and manage smart, then we can deliver extra capacity without necessarily digging up all the roads around Liverpool, which I'm sure will bring a smile to the face of most of the people in this room, and certainly does to myself. So we can't be disruptive. We need to do this recognising this is a busy city with a developing economy that can't have disruption across its streets. The last one's a bit of a funny one. A couple of things we expect to, hopefully my vehicle that I've just put a £2,000 deposit on looks better than this. But there is a serious point in this slide, even though it's a little bit of a joke. If we don't get ahead of the curve, if we don't start to invest, if we don't lobby our politicians to allow us to do that now, then the only way I'm going to be able to charge my vehicle in the future is hope that a lightning bolt strikes the top of that vehicle to charge the battery, because we'll turn up to petrol stations, if you like, pull the trigger on the handle, and there'll be no juice coming out. So we need to get ahead of demand, and we need to make sure that we've got that investment in place to meet the expectations of our customers and the cities that we serve. Thanks very much.